There had to be sort of a dance of conflict. What about bringing somebody from Little House onto the show? Should they win Emmys? Absolutely. He's an underdog and it makes you root for him also. We know the clock is ticking for the audience. Like, when are we going to get that ring on our finger? We know that is a question.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you back to the podcast. Today, I have with me one of the co-creators and an executive producer of When Calls the Heart. You know him as Brian Bird. So thank you so much, Brian, for being here.
Thank you, Stephanie. Glad to be with you.
Thank you for taking the time to sit and chat with us to celebrate, first of all, what an amazing season 12. But also, we've got great news that we have a season 13 on the horizon in 2026. So, a lot more to celebrate. And so, I'm excited to talk to you about season 12 and also celebrate season 13, plus a couple of other projects that we're going to get to talk about. So, I'm excited.
Awesome. That sounds great. Love talking about all things Hope Valley.
So I want to start, if you could, oftentimes people, what we know about the Hearties is they love all of the behind the scenes. They love to know all of the logistics and how things work. Could you share a little bit about your role as a co-creator and an executive producer for the show?
Happy to. Back when Michael Lennon Jr. and I first sort of came up with this project, it was really a lot farther back just than 12 years. It was all the way back in 2008. And we were just trying to make a movie with When Calls the Heart. And so uh, I guess it would have been 4 years later when the Hallmark Channel decided to move forward with the project. Um, we made not only a 2 hour, what they call backdoor pilot, sort of a 2 hour television movie that, you know, served as the precedent for a series. They loved the movie so much they said, we're just, we're getting into the television business, television episodic series business. Would you guys like to do 6 episodes? And Michael had worked on other television shows before. I had done several hundred episodes of TV in the past. And so, it was like we just saluted, like, yes, how high do you want us to jump? We're happy
Yeah.
to. And so from those first 6 episodes, which turned into 12 actually in the first season, um, we had our first show on the air, and we were the showrunners of
Yeah.
those early seasons. Co-creators, executive producers, showrunners. Michael directed many of the episodes. So we were the first showrunners on When Calls the Heart and the creators. And so we're just trying to make a good show.
Yeah.
And we basically were living in Vancouver at the time because it was we had a handful of freelance writers joining us for the first season, but we didn't have a writing staff. We didn't have a writing room. We met in a hotel conference room with our freelance writers early on to sort of start coming up with ideas for those first 6 episodes. And so it was very much hand to mouth. Um, I had been on many shows prior to that, and so I sort of had all of that training. Uh, the last show I had been on at the time was Touched by an Angel, and so I was a co-executive producer on that show, and the higher up the food chain you go in terms of as a writer and a producer, the more responsibility you have. And so I sort of got trained in all of the things that we needed to do to know how to run the show.
Yeah.
And when you're the showrunner, everything falls on you, all the decisions. Of course, you have the network that's going to have their opinions. You have production partners who are helping finance the show. And so your goal as showrunners is to make everybody as happy as possible, keep the quality up. Hopefully the audience will love it, but you're just trying to make the best show you can. And we didn't really know if people were going to respond to it. We were just
Yeah.
trying to make a good show. And Michael obviously came from his legacy with Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven. I had all of my experience with shows like Step by Step and Touched by an Angel and Evening Shade. And so came from a legacy of this kind of content. Um, and Michael had also made several movies from Jeanette Oak books prior, the Love Comes Softly series,
Yes.
also
Yeah.
for Hallmark. So we had sort of kind of a built-in foundation of this kind of programming. And so, but all that to say, we were just trying to make a good show.
Yeah.
And we didn't know if people were going to accept it, if they'd like it. We just sort of held our breath to see. And because we strung out the first season, it was 6 episodes. Then they said, okay, we want 4 more. So we sort of had to hurry up and get those next 4 ready to go. And then they said, no, we want even 2 more of these. Well, we were still shooting the last set of episodes when the show had started airing. So we were in Vancouver still shooting episodes, still doing post-production on those episodes while the show was actually starting to air. So it was all happening in real time for us. And anyway, so that's a little bit of sort of the genesis of how it all began. So we were sort of we gave birth to the show.
Yeah.
And now all these years later we feel like proud grandparents, to
Yeah.
be honest with you, because we've been able to sort of kick ourselves upstairs and not have to do all the heavy lifting. It's a lot of work when you're running a show, and you sort of have your life rented from you for about 9 months out of the year, and so you don't get much of a personal life. You don't see your family enough, all of those things. So there comes a point at which, running a show, you really have to let somebody else come in and do some of the heavy lifting. And now it's just a privilege because we get to, help at a high level we look at scripts, we look at storylines, we watch cuts of the episode, we give our feedback, we hold our advice with a loose grip because we want our writers and other team members to be able to take some ownership of the process and do their best with it. But we still we'll still dive bomb if we have a note, and to make sure we keep everything uh, tied to the core values of the show, so it doesn't sort of go off in directions that we don't think the audience would appreciate. Anyway, so that's and we're obviously involved in the marketing of the show and building the movement around the show all these years later. So it's a real pleasure to continue to serve now at more of a grandfather level on the
Got it.
show, but it's still our family, so we still get to talk, we still get to speak into it, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun.
So we often hear you talk about, that mission or those values of the show, and always wanting what we see to ring true to that. But going into season 13 coming up and just finishing 12, the show, I imagine, has to always look for ways to reinvent itself.
Yeah.
And so when you look back at season 12, can you share some of those moments that you were really excited to see how the writers, the actors, all of the cast and crew really found some neat and new opportunities and ways to reinvent the show?
Love to. Yeah. You know, the the bottom line for Michael and I is that we want the show to stay true to the spiritual and moral compass that it was started with. And that's not just our rules. That comes from the source material from Jeanette Oak. Jeanette, God bless her, is 90 years old now and was at our last Hearties family reunion. We hope to have her come. By the way, there will be another Hearties family reunion this year, and we'll be announcing the dates on that soon. So all the Hearties should keep their ears and eyes open. But yeah, Jeanette gave birth. She's the queen of this storytelling universe. And so we always, test everything up against measuring stick and that thermometer. And Jeanette also speaks in. Like she has privileges, that maybe not all authors do, but we want to hear her opinion of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And she's not shy about giving them, uh,
Good.
which is really good. So it sort of keeps everybody accountable. This idea. That's not to say we're not open to new kinds of storytelling and new ways to to expand the world of Hope Valley. But we do want it to hone true to the core mission, the core values. So season 12, first of all, it's a really fantastic season. I think it
Yeah.
was one of our better ones in a long
I
time.
agree. Yeah.
And we just we I loved it. I loved all of it. The good, the bad, the fun, the scary,
Yeah.
all of those things. For me, I believe in and I cheer for all the time. Um, the Roaring Twenties are alive and well, obviously in Hope Valley
Yeah.
this year. So to be able to go and do a production number like we did, right?
Yeah.
In I think it was episode 6. They blur a little bit for me, but I think it was episode 6. And what a great number for Aaron and Kevin to do together as Nathan and Elizabeth, sing a song and learn the Charleston and be in the
Yeah.
tuxes and the flapper gowns and the flapper head, headbands and all of that. Uh, it was just lovely and
Yeah.
a little bit of Great Gatsby, in
Mhm.
Hope Valley. And so just loved all of that. Um, we always know that the clock is ticking, right, for the audience. They're when they believe in a relationship like Nathan and Elizabeth. And that obviously that comes with some controversy as well over the years, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we fully understand that not everybody always roots for the same kind of pairings in the show. But now that it's established that this is a couple that's moving forward, um, we know the clock is ticking for the audience. Like, when are we going to get that ring on our finger? We know that is a question. Well, I always say it took us 5 years to get Jack and Elizabeth married, right?
Hmm.
5 seasons to get them
Hmm.
married. So I don't quite have that same need for speed that some
Yeah.
of the Hardys might,
Yeah.
right? We're not afraid of it. We believe in it. We obviously, there's no shacking up in Hope Valley, not with the moral code of this show.
Yeah.
So there, at some point, it's going to have to happen. Well, we know
Yeah.
that, but we know that part of you know, the journey is as important as the destination,
Hmm.
the audience, and the
Hmm.
satisfaction of the chase is
Hmm.
just as important as the destination. And so it's not that we are intentionally delaying this eventuality for the show,
Yeah.
but we also believe that life has to play out like it does for all of us.
Okay.
Timing, we have our desires personally, like in life for our lives, how things should go, but we don't always get what we want on
Hmm.
this on the same timeline that we think we should, right?
Hmm.
Life gets in the way of that. And so my personal uh, love and hope for the show is that we continue to reflect some reality.
Okay.
We know that this is a show that gives people all the feels and gives them a sense of escape sometimes from some of the hard stuff that they experience in life. And we want it to be that. Uh, we're not saying we don't want to do that for people. And I don't think anybody could look at this season and say we didn't give that to them,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Nobody got shortchanged of escapism this year. But along with that, um, you know, there is ideal versus real, right? Well, we all idealize our lives. We all hope that our lives will be ideal, right?
Yeah.
But real sets in,
Yeah.
real stuff, and disease, right? Sickness, job changes, uh, you know, uh, experiences outside of our own control, right?
Hmm.
We all run into these things in real life. And what we want the characters to be is relatable, right? Not just like out of reach fantasy.
Yeah.
We want them
Yeah.
to be relatable, so we want them to go through things that our audience has to go through, that we all have to go
Hmm.
through.
Hmm.
And challenges in life are the great equalizer for all of us. Doesn't matter who we are. You can
Hmm.
have all the money in the world and you're still going to end up in the same place. Last time I checked, the mortality rate was 100%, right?
Yeah.
So we're all going to end up in the hospital, or we're going to all end
Hmm.
up with some problem that we have to get fixed. And so for little Jack to get a fatal disease in 1922, uh, you know, was a shock. We know that,
Yeah.
right? On the heels of all the excitement that the show had become, suddenly we hearkened back to some hard stuff that happened earlier in the life of the show. So, but it's not to exploit, it's not to manipulate, it's all to try to make the characters as believable and authentic and relatable
Yeah.
uh, to our audience. And so you get all the feels, but that means all the feels.
Yeah.
So
Every bit of it, right?
yes, yeah.
Yes.
But it was a great season. I'm very proud of season 12.
So, speaking to that, the beginning of the season, there was no time lapse. We pick right up where season 11
Right.
left off. And it's a pretty intense moment for Elizabeth, who is presented with Jack's medal from Hargraves, and Nathan is right there with her. And like you said, the reality is Elizabeth and now Nathan are walking through this idea of the fact that at some point, little Jack may have questions about what happened to his father and the role that Nathan or not role played in that situation. And so, could you talk a little bit about working through that reality? And what do you think at the end of that episode, and even now at the end of season 12, where is Nathan in that reality? Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I absolutely loved the way season 11 ended with that cliffhanger, right? Like
Mhm.
Hargraves wants to talk to Elizabeth because there's something related to her deceased husband
Yeah.
that he has to tell her. And that hearkening, invoking back all the loaded feelings and everything related to that dream couple that for so many seasons of One Calls the Heart, um, we knew would be, like that was an incredible way to end season 11. Well, there's no way you're going to jump 3 months from there,
Right.
right? So
Right.
it had to be literally continuous action, and we hadn't done that. We'd done it. We'd done it in past seasons. It's not the first time we've ever just gone in continuous sequence between seasons. Um, but we just knew that we had to go there, and so no time lapse like you get sometimes at the end of a season, beginning of a new season. Um, and we just and to be quite honest, at the end of season 11, we knew we wanted to provide a cliffhanger in the vein of what happened.
Hmm.
Um, we didn't know what Hargraves had for Elizabeth
Got it.
in season 11.
Got it.
That had to be invented, right?
After the season?
After the season.
Okay.
Right there, and that happens all the time in
Oh,
series
yeah.
television. You
Yeah.
go, oh, this would be a great way to end, right? And then you go, oh wait, but how do we resolve that?
Now what?
Yeah, exactly. And but it's part of the joy, it's part of the thrill of the
Mhm.
work, in
Yeah.
being a storyteller.
Yeah.
Um, so some people might think, oh, they had that all planned out years ahead. No, you invent stuff on the fly sometimes,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is well thought through, for a while, but a lot of times it's just on the fly, and it works, and the fact that we found, and our writers, our great writing team found the right option for how to resolve that was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But I loved the use of that metal because that metal became a thing in the whole season,
Yeah.
right? We went back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was a reminder to Elizabeth, right, of what she had lost. It was a question mark for little Jack, right, that it was going to become an even bigger question for him as time goes on.
Right.
And it's a thorn in the side for Nathan,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Nathan has a sense of culpability about what happened to Jack. It
Yeah.
wasn't his fault, but he made a choice that, booted him from the mission several seasons ago, right?
Yeah.
That he was not proud of.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything wrong. He just got booted from the mission, and Jack ended up taking his spot. So the for Elizabeth, there's no lasting unforgiveness, or she has come to terms with that. She has forgiven. She has resolved that. She loves this man.
Yeah.
But for Nathan, it it's not something you can live down. I have a friend in real life, a friend uh, who accidentally killed somebody with
Mm.
his car when he was a teenager. He's never been able to forgive himself fully. It still resonates with him decades and decades later. So that it was that dynamic
Mm-hmm.
that made for such a rich, it was just a
Mm-hmm.
little metal.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little metal,
Yeah.
right? An honor, a symbol of heroism. But it resonated with a whole bunch of people, right? For a
Mm-hmm.
handful of episodes there.
Yeah.
And so it was potent and powerful. So I'm, we, some people might think, oh, well, who cares? Oh man, that was a rosebud,
Oh yeah.
if you know that term,
Oh yeah.
from Citizen Kane,
Uh-huh.
the little snow globe that William Randolph Hearst, not the real Randolph Hearst,
Yeah.
but in the fake Randolph Hearst in the movie, lost, and it was a symbol of his of childhood lost to
Yeah.
him,
Yeah.
right? So that was our rosebud, and we use that term a lot in
Mm-hmm.
the story business. We talk about the rosebud, and that metal was a rosebud.
I love that the medal did come back up and that it was Nathan who made the decision to get the medal, to bring it and put it in little Jack's hands. And I mean, I feel like that speaks to where Nathan is a bit
Yes,
in that situation. So it was pretty powerful to see that moment. One of my favorites of the season, to see that moment.
100%. And just the nuance in the acting performance for Kevin there, I thought was very powerful
Yeah.
because he had to cover for his feelings in public, but in his private moments, you could really see
Mm.
that it was nagging at him.
Yeah. Yeah. Going light a little bit. You When Calls the Heart hit the jackpot this year with a couple of new additions to the show. One of them being Oliver Garrett and one of them being Edie Martel.
Yes.
First up, let's talk a little bit about Oliver Garrett. Can you speak to what led to the decision to bring Oliver to Hope Valley?
Yes. So prior to Jacob Chume being cast in the part, we we had talked, at the end of season 11 about, the idea of a young love in town, right? Because these kids are growing up. There's some are graduated from school now, right? So they're grown up, and we can't just continue. We have a group of littles now in
Mm-hmm.
on the show, a new group of littles. All of these older kids used to be the littles, but now they're grown up and they're becoming young adults. And so we felt like, okay, we need to figure out a way to do a young love story. So that was
Mm-hmm.
really the genesis of that. How that, turned into a Mountie cadet and all of that, was to be determined. But we just knew we wanted to do young love. We also figured, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we got to make it, between Allie and this young man, because Allie's the daughter of the Mountie and
Mm-hmm.
love interest for Elizabeth in the town. So it puts Allie right in the center of that, and it puts Nathan as a father at the center of, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Letting my my girl into the dating pool,
Mm-hmm.
that just provides a rich array of story time
Yeah.
opportunities for Elizabeth too, right? Because she's
Yeah.
her teacher, and she has to split the difference between being her teacher and also being sort of her, mother figure.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, we just knew that that was sort of an essential oil to put into the show this year. And Jacob did a great job. Jacob Shume playing Ollie, and uh, and then a little love triangle along the way,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
you know, very, close to life for
Yeah.
teenagers.
Yeah.
That stuff happens all the time. And the
Yeah.
dance, right? The
Uh-huh.
birthday party dance,
Mm-hmm.
which is a new wrinkle for everybody as well. So it just provided a lot of fun. But it wasn't just about the romance. We
That's
got to
right.
do some deep, nice, heartfelt kind of shows with Ollie's character and his backstory and some of the challenges that he had in life prior
Mm-hmm.
to getting here. And it
Mm-hmm.
just makes you, because he's an underdog, and it makes you root for him also, right? And he had
Yeah.
feelings for Allie even when Allie had her eye on, Sunshine there, Wyatt with all the hair for a while.
Yeah.
It made everybody root for the young Dudley Do Right in
You
town,
got it.
because we want
Yeah.
him to win. So anyway, yeah, good, really nice piece to the addition of the show. And then obviously Edie, Miranda just did a fantastic job as Edie, and
So
you
good.
know, and I think some Hearties will say, "Oh, well, you're just trying to give Lucas a love story, like a significant other, an interest." Yeah, well, and your point is what? Uh,
Yes.
but it wasn't, it wasn't. We weren't patronizing anybody. We gave it a rich backdrop, to work with. And the two of them are at odds too. It's not like they're on the same side,
Right.
right? Through most of the season, they're not on the same side. And there had to be sort of a dance of conflict between them just because of, where they came from and what their roles are. And so, well, I thought that was a tremendous addition, to the show. It wasn't just about giving, Lucas a replacement for his, for Elizabeth, for
Mm-hmm.
losing Elizabeth. No, it was
Mm-hmm.
a full on, opportunity there
Mm-hmm.
for him. Um, so anyway, yeah, we're excited about that, and we see more for them. We think we see more for them for the future for sure.
I love that, with Lucas and then, Edie coming into the picture, that she started by representing this bit of a challenge for him, which I love
Mhm.
seeing that in Lucas, and just the growth of them being at odds to then realizing, him beginning to trust her and realize she really is a good person. She's got these things that she's having to deal with. She's basically blackmailed by McGinty.
Yep.
um, one of my favorite moments with them, and of course, I love the end when they dance and he fires her quickly so they can dance. But one of my favorite moments with them is when she comes in after she realizes, she's she sat and listened to Spaghetti go, and she is just itching enough that she has to go back and talk to him and explain, and explains to him that she's made the decision to not represent the cattlemen anymore. And immediately he realizes what she's done for him, but then
Mhm.
he immediately realizes, now what does this mean for her? And
Yes.
it was such a powerful moment to see that interaction between the two of them.
Yeah. In season 11, we threw Lucas into the deep end of the pool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And at the end of season 10, he gets shot, right? So, and he loses his memory, and there's, that whole arc, and then, having to sort of come to terms with his past and some of the
Mhm.
choices that he made even before he came to Hope Valley with, Jessica Rabbit coming to town in season 11. So Lucas was and he was in the deep end of the pool as a governor,
Yeah.
right? He was given all this responsibility and shot and, overcoming all of those challenges. So he was in no position to have a love interest in season 11.
Yeah.
He got his feet back under him when he finally was able to get to the bottom of the mystery, of who shot him, and
Hmm.
Jeanette Qua, her her role in that, being really kind of the arch villain of the whole thing,
Yeah.
this former flame that he had. So he was in no position at that time. Now he is, right? Now he's got his feet back under him. And so anyway, I'm a fan of that of that relationship
Hmm.
and how it unfolded this year.
Yeah. Big fan here as well. So, in episode 3, we see Elizabeth and Nathan share their first real grown-up date. Allie's telling him, "You stop with the picnics already. You got to go out on a real grown-up date," which begins in the barn. But then something very new to When Calls the Heart, and that is that they take a ride on Newton, bareback, side saddle, and it was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever seen on When Calls the Heart. And we've heard from Elise, we've heard from Kevin and Aaron both about what they were up against to capture that moment, but also how the skies aligned and
Yes.
created such a beautiful picture. And I know that this year there was definitely a focus and a priority in creating more cinematic moments, and that those were very deliberate choices. So can you talk about, that moment or just that choice and some of the other cinematic moments that we got to see this season?
Yeah, you when these episodes are scheduled, right? We block shoot. That's a term that is,
Yeah.
inside under the hood of the engine here. I'm just giving some wonky stuff, but we block shoot 2 episodes at a time,
Yeah.
right? So we have 2 scripts, and we we marry all those scenes together into one big pot, and then when we're like, you go into the saloon, you shoot all the saloon stuff like for 2 days or 3 days or whatever you need to do. But they come and go like this in those 2 episodes. So you'd never know, you can't predict like the sky
Yeah.
ever, right?
Even the
Especially in
weathermen don't
Vancouver.
get it right.
No, no, and you don't ever predict a sunset like that,
Yeah.
right? Where there's just these gorgeous clouds, and it's serendipitous when it happens, and when you see it coming, sometimes you have to punt
Yeah.
what you were doing in order to go get it,
Yeah.
right? And so that particular moment, which is so cinematic, was uh, was a miracle combined with some planning,
Yeah.
right? So that ride would have been shot earlier in the day, right?
Yeah.
But because of some other circumstance, it had to get pushed. And so it got pushed to a different time. And it just so happened that that was the sky. So you you jump at the chance to grab it when you can,
Yeah.
right? And that's really about our director, of the and each of our directors directs those two episodes that are being block shot, right? So each director gets a block of two episodes to shoot. So it's all about the director spotting opportunity and saying, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out, right? And because we're in Hope Valley all the time, we're at
Mm-hmm.
that location. Even
Mm-hmm.
when we go to Cape Fullerton, it's still there,
Yeah.
right? We have to make believe that we're in another town. So yeah, so it can become tricky, but when we're there, all the gear is there close by. You just jump at the chance to go grab something, and it becomes, golden
Yeah.
to the production value of the show.
Yeah. And even to the point that it makes it into the intro, right?
100%. Because yeah, 100%. When you find something like that, you just use the heck out of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and even like when Elizabeth and Henry, um, when they are all going after to try to find during the Garrison gang, and even the drone shot above and the sweeping with the horses,
Yes.
another fantastic, gorgeous moment.
Yes. Since we started doing this show, 12 years ago, um, the technology has changed,
Yeah.
right? Drones 12 years ago are not the same as they are today. They're so much better now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You use them more sparingly back in the day because you couldn't really affix a really really great camera on them.
Yeah.
Now they have like amazing drones. In the old days, you had to be up in a helicopter to get that shot, in a real helicopter. So now we can do it with a remote control and put the camera up high in the sky. Well, we didn't have that 12 years ago. So as the
Mhm.
technology has improved, and even as the
Mhm.
visual effects technology has improved, the world becomes even more cinematic and more believable because we have new toys to work with
Mhm.
in the filmmaking process.
Yeah. Well, and Ali Devereaux shared the other day that, when you have moments like that, when you have moments like what Sarah Maberly and her team, and even Barbara and her team were able to create with the Gatsby scenes, with Ali's dance, um, with the Union City facade, and you're all doing that in Hope Valley, that it actually opens up ideas for them that they haven't even thought about, that they can dream beyond. We're back to that inventive part,
Yes.
and what it can do for them as writers, even.
Yes, 100%. Say the same goes for the train,
Yeah, the train, exactly.
right? So that Sarah did a fantastic job building that train set, and built right on into the saloon,
Hmm.
shot in the saloon. It was built right there, and it even had gimbals on it. So we had our special effects guys working these gimbals to give it the rocking
Give it the
motion,
movement.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really fun. It's for us on this side, it's kind of how the sausage gets made, and maybe it takes away a little bit of the excitement and fantasy for the audience to know this stuff. But I think everybody's fascinated
Yeah.
by the magic of
Hmm.
Hollywood. I've used this uh, example many times in interviews, but when we first got to the Jamestown Movie Ranch, way back 12 years ago, 13 years ago now, it um, it wasn't finished, right? It was kind of most of all the buildings that have insides were empty. They were just shells. There was
Hmm.
nothing had been built inside, and so and a lot of the buildings were just facades, right? Just the front. There was nothing behind them. So we've over time had to build out the whole town. Well, now most of it is built out. There are still a few facades, but it's mostly interiors, exteriors, so that it becomes seamless. We can come and go from all these locations, and it just feels like it's all a part of a world.
Hmm.
A lot of times in film and TV, you build interiors on a soundstage, right? And then you shoot the exteriors somewhere else. So you
Yeah.
watch somebody go in a door and then you pick them up coming into the room in a soundstage. And it works. You absolutely buy it when you do it that way. But now it's this all practically a real town that we can come and go all in all those buildings. And so the the original church in the town was Yost Mercantile, where Yost
Got it.
Mercantile is
Yeah.
now. And that steeple that's on the church now and schoolhouse now was on top of Yost Mercantile, where that is now. But our storytelling way back then was that the church had been burned down,
Hmm.
right? Along with the schoolhouse. So Elizabeth had to teach school in the saloon.
Yeah.
People affectionately called it the Scaloon. Well, we didn't bring a church until a few seasons later, a new church, a new schoolhouse, till the end of I think season 2 now. Well, what we did is we saved that steeple from Yost Mercantile, put it in storage, because in our business the phrase is save all parts of the animal, because you never know what you're going to need later. So we saved the steeple. Um, when it came time to actually build the church and the schoolhouse, we had 3 row houses, practical row houses, that where Elizabeth lives and where we now basically everybody lives in those row houses, but we only have 2, like practical ones.
Yeah.
All the rest of them are digital, effects.
Yeah.
So, but the insides are all we just use over and over again for different people. So uh, so what we had originally was 3 row houses in season 1.
Hmm.
We moved one of the row houses over on the other side of the pond. So now we're down to 2 row houses, but we
Hmm.
have now a schoolhouse and a church. We repitched the roof more steep,
Yeah.
and then we went and grabbed Ned Yost's staple and put it on top, right? So this is what you do when you have use of the whole thing.
Hmm.
It's the best thing ever. That 170-acre ranch, I think that's how big it is. We can go anywhere on that property, right? And so
Yeah.
we shoot the whole show there and we fake all these other towns, right in Hope Valley as best we can.
Another pretty amazing set was the Schwartzman School, which we got to see in episode 9. Um, and that whole thing, I mean, from those girls that were cast and what they brought to that moment
Mm,
was pretty spectacular. And like you said, shot in right there in Hope Valley, inside of, Bill's office area.
yes.
But that storyline with Angela this season, and we begin to see it a little bit. Even at the end of episode of season 11, where this is on the horizon, but she's wrestling with going, and then Minnie has her own thing that she's walking through. Can you talk a little bit about that particular story, and how that played out this season?
Yeah, what's always been fun for our writing staffs is to go do homework every year of what was going on in real history,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
At the time. So that actually led us to the diabetes and the insulin discovery of insulin, which happened literally in 1922 in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So it made for sort of a perfect fit, for that story. Well, harkening back to the opening of these schools for the visually impaired,
Mm-hmm.
blind students back in
Mm-hmm.
the day, the idea that Helen Keller went to that school, right? We just love the tapestry the weaving of the tapestry of Hope Valley and the world of When Calls a Heart with real history, right? Now, sometimes we get the dates off a little bit or we fudge it a little bit
Yeah.
for convenience, because life doesn't lay out neatly all the time in a 5 act structure like it has to do in a
Yeah.
TV show. But yeah, so the idea of we have this blind character in our town that everybody loves who is getting older, right? And so we have this big question mark about what happens to these young people, you know, when they age out of school,
Hmm.
right? Out of the
Hmm.
Hope Valley School. And also just the universal storyline of uh, that many of us, I as a parent have gone through this 4 times with having to take my children to school at far away from where we lived. And that's a most families go through this, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we love the relatability of that as well, but then just the opportunity to be as inclusive as we possibly could and
Hmm.
and cast actual visually impaired actors to be in the show, and they just killed it. I just thought they killed it. Uh,
Amazing.
did such a great job, and so it was thrilling. That all of that was deeply thrilling for us to do, to just broaden our tent even bigger
Yes.
and to include everybody, right?
Yeah. So, speaking of including people, somebody that we were very familiar with and super excited to hear was coming to When Calls the Heart this season was Melissa Gilbert. So, having her join the show for 2 episodes was a real treat for us. How did you feel about her pairing with Bill Avery, and how satisfied were you with the turnout after episode 10?
Oh man. Well, Michael Landon, my partner, um, this was his brainstorm way back when, before the season. And he had gone in, many of the Hardys have probably heard this story, but I'll just recap it. He had gone to the 50th anniversary of Little House on the Prairie out in
Yes.
Simi Valley, California. He and his sister, kind of representing the Landon family. They had both been in the show as kids. Their dad was the creator and director and writer of those episodes and star of the show. So they had, so they were representing the Landon equation there, and there were 20,000 bonnets, they call them, I guess, the fans of Little House after 50 years.
Oh my goodness.
50 years ago, this started. So they had this big sort of like we do with our Hearties family reunion, a big fan, show, a Comic Con style kind of event in Simi Valley. And Michael and his sister Leslie were so moved by the whole thing and so um, like surprised at the love and the tears and
Mhm.
all that show meant to everybody that Michael said, Michael would talk to people and, here he's created this other show now in the legacy of his father, really kind
Yeah.
of storytelling. And, he would ask him, hey, do you know about When Calls a Heart? And about 1 in 5 of those Little House fans knew about it.
Yeah.
And he said, something's wrong with that. Right. And so
Hmm.
we got talking, and I said, well, what about bringing somebody from Little House onto the show? And he said, absolutely. I already know who that should be. And so Michael really made that happen. And it was so exciting. And Melissa was fantastic on,
Wonderful.
When Calls the Heart.
Hmm.
And I think I think the Hardys and the fans of When Calls the Heart should expect to see her more uh, in the future. Uh, you don't get to plant a smackaroo between Jack Wagner and Melissa Gilbert, and then it just go away forever.
Was that the kiss of the season? I mean,
Oh, it was fantastic. It was better than all those younger people did. I mean, yeah,
uh,
so we love that, and we love the idea of giving Jack an old flame. He's had old flames in the show before, even an old ex-wife in the show before, but it's been a while, and
Hmm.
somebody that was his equal, really. We
Yeah.
liked that idea too,
Yeah.
with Georgie. So anyway, yeah, it's so special, and Melissa loved her experience being on the show, and just we're hoping lots of bonnets will come and watch, When Calls the Heart now.
That would be amazing. Well, we're excited to see that storyline continue. It was definitely fun to watch, and it was time for Bill to get his romance. So that's
Absolutely.
exciting. I definitely want to talk a little bit more about episode 11 and
Okay.
episode 12, because those were very powerful moments, and I know we will still be talking about both of those episodes for quite some time. At least 9 months we have to, right?
Yes. Yes.
So everything from Aaron's performance with, oh my goodness, the talent. And the moment between Nathan and Bill,
Mm.
and to see how their relationship has grown. I mean, multiple times in that episode, I was just in tears when I see Bill reach for Nathan's neck, when I see Elizabeth come to the screen. And on top of that, we have Highland who knocked it out of the park. Can you speak to the performances of episode 11?
Yeah, I'm proud of every episode that we've done on this show. All 100, I think there's 135 now that are in the can.
Hmm.
Um, but I have to say there are a handful over the years that are just on another level.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're dealing with hard stuff, right? And you know, there's a lot of comedy in the show. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of, you know, uh, escapist aspects to the show. But then we hit on these themes that are real life stuff. And the actors are obviously deeply affected by all of that storytelling. So, you know, they have to put themselves in those places
Hmm.
to do those things,
Hmm.
right? But the setup, you know, gives them that ground for all that talent to play
Hmm.
with, and they're deeply skilled actors. Everybody on the show is, um, but these stories, boy, just pull out a whole different level of performance
Hmm.
when necessary, and I believe that those are the kind of episodes that we must do. Not every episode has to be that way.
Hmm.
But when I did Touched by an Angel, there was a good cry in every episode. Uh, in
Yeah.
Act Four of Touched by an Angel was all about that, right? And I believe the audience needs that,
Yeah.
right? They need that. They need to tap that in themselves and go through that, even vicariously with those characters, experience what they're going through. And so we won't ever apologize for that, for those kinds of stories. Um, but should they win Emmys? Absolutely.
Mm.
We don't, sadly, our show is not the kind of show that, because Emmys are given out by peers, right? I'm a writer. I can vote on Emmy award winning scripts, right? When the Emmys when it comes time. Actors vote for actors' performances. Producers vote for shows, right? So the the trick of it is that, there's just a lot of edgy stuff out there, and the squeaky wheel always gets the grease.
Yeah.
We're the family friendly, feel good, uplifting kind of entertainment that everybody, I believe, needs and wants. But most of the time, they get dark and cynical content almost everywhere else. Not
Hmm.
not totally, but almost everywhere else. Somehow those kinds of shows, all these anti-hero shows and I'm not saying they're not really well done. They're
Hmm.
fantastically made, but they get the attention. They get the
Hmm.
hardware. Um, and we get sort of overlooked because we're uplifting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but they did all of them, every one of them
Hmm.
deserved that. And that moment, that real father son moment
Mm.
between Bill and Nathan, fantastic.
Yeah.
To see Nathan so vulnerable and to say, I'm supposed to be the one to provide the protection,
Mm.
and I'm powerless.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do to fix this,
Yeah.
right? Just really beautifully done. So yeah, those last two were sort of up there in the top, you know, top episodes that we've ever done, for sure.
Episode 12, you know, parts of that, we are used to in an episode 12, which was so fun to see. I mean, it's still we knew there's something there. There's something not quite right with little Jack. This is not completely resolved. And we know that. But what we do see is, and you've coined it, a character of Hope Valley, and that is the community of Hope Valley. We see all of these people coming together. We have some lighthearted moments. Um, it's really nice to see how all of these pull back together. But then Elizabeth gets the news and she, sees that little Jack is not responding. And so now the inevitable, and that was that her solution is not going to work. And so she has to come up with a new plan. So, and several of the cast, several of the directors had said, there will be something unexpected. So we had a little bit, of course, we had no idea. It was definitely unexpected. But can you talk about the decision to force Elizabeth? And again, it's reality, when you have to choose what's your priority at this point. Can you talk about that decision to have her leave to take care of little Jack?
Yes, the true to the issue of insulin is that it has to be refrigerated, right? Still does,
Yeah.
even today, right? Even the synthetic insulin has to be refrigerated. So back then, you know, the early days of ice boxes and keeping things cold was a lot different than it is now. So having a stable source on a daily basis of this medicine turns a fatal disease into a chronic disease. I'm diabetic. I've lived with diabetes for 25 years. I'm a healthy person, but I have to take medication or I won't be a healthy
Yeah.
person. So this is just a part of the reality. Uh, Parents do what must be done.
Hmm.
Nothing else matters. You everything else disappears from your to-do list when your child is sick. We've all gone through this. Everybody who's had a child or excuse me has family members or nieces or nephews, they know what this is like. And when and this story wasn't based on this by any means, but when my oldest son, I was a journalist at the beginning of my career, and I was in South America covering a story for a magazine, and I was up in the like out in the like there was no phone reception anywhere. We didn't have cell phones anyway, so I was I was unreachable. My
Hmm.
son got meningitis
Hmm.
and was in the hospital.
Hmm.
And when I got back to the hotel in the city and saw this stack of messages, my heart went into my throat. And I did everything I possibly could to get home as fast as I could.
Hmm.
And I was on a plane. I didn't know if my son was going to still be here when I got back. A, a parent throws themselves into the waves to save
Hmm.
their child, right? This is what has to happen. The only solution is in Cape Fullerton,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's the only solution. You do what must be done.
Hmm.
And the fact that we were able to do this incredible moment where or Nathan catches up with them and goes with them where you go, I go.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, just a great way to end the show.
Yeah.
And we're we put them in a situation in that cliffhanger that we have to pick that up too at the beginning of season 13, right? We're not
Yeah.
jumping forward months on that story either,
Yeah.
right? Because we have to discover what's going to happen uh, next and how they're going to solve that and get home. How are they going to ever get home,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
It's a great problem to have if you're writers on a TV show.
Did you know that Nathan at the end would be going with Elizabeth to Cape Fullerton?
Yeah, I mean that comes as part of the evolution of the story process.
Hmm.
The writers are in a nowadays on a Zoom room, but
Yeah.
in the old days we were actually in a room. Um, Everybody pitches ideas, right?
Hmm.
And whether or not they remember any of them, I don't know because I didn't ask them. But there's a there's a very similar uh, moment that takes place in the book, the original When Calls the Heart book, where Elizabeth is leaving on a train,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
The Aunt Elizabeth in this case.
Yes.
And her beau, her Mountie, Win Delaney,
Hmm.
catches up with the train on his horse
Yes.
and gets in that and jumps onto the train, leaves his horse behind,
Yeah.
and goes in and has this moment with Elizabeth.
Yeah.
It's a very similar moment. This is what you do, right? When you're doing a romance, when you're doing a story about a couple that's in love. So, hooray for these guys for coming up with that because I thought it was a fantastic way to end season 12.
Yeah. And we're excited to know that in season 13, they're together. Cape Fullerton, perhaps we'll see a whole new facade built there in Hope Valley. Is there anything else that you can share or tease about season 13?
I think the only thing I would say is that don't expect them to be home too quickly.
Okay.
Um, and I would also say I think we can expect to see more of Georgie.
Oh,
I think we can expect to see more of Edie, and I
nice.
think we can expect to see more of Ollie, Oliver.
That's
So
great.
those are the best teases I can give. They're working hard already now. Our new showrunner will be Joy Gregory. She's stepping
Fantastic.
up
Okay.
to become the showrunner this year, and I know you're going to be talking to her on your show.
Yeah.
Uh, but we got some of the previous writers are joining that team, and we have some new writers that will be joining, and she'll be able to share more about that. But I'm excited for season 13 and
Yeah.
excited for all the fans of One Calls the Heart.
Well, we can't wait. And, last season we didn't quite have 9 months that we had to wait. This time we do at least have
Yes.
that many months. So we're going to try to pace ourselves accordingly. In the meantime, you have something that you could share about that for those When Calls the Heart people that could potentially, and I imagine will, provide some great entertainment and great storytelling. So I would love if you could talk about When Hope Calls.
Yes, yes. So When Hope Calls is finally coming on April 3rd on Great American Peer Flicks first, and then it'll be on Great American Channel, Family Channel, Great American Family on April 6th. Season 2, the finally, after a long wait, season 2 is finally coming back to life, When Hope Calls. And When Hope Calls is from the world of the sort of Jeanette Oak storytelling universe. It was what was called a planted spinoff series from When Calls the Heart
Mm-hmm.
uh, 4 years ago now. And we did season one, did all those episodes of season one in Brookfield, which is another town which is nearby, close enough to get to, but more than a day's ride away from Hope Valley.
Okay.
Um, but and we in season one we even crossed some of our Hope Valley
Yeah.
citizens over into When Hope Calls in Brookfield, the town of Brookfield. Um, and some of the same actors and characters from the original season of When Hope Calls are back, and some new ones. Some
Right.
exciting new characters are coming. But for all Hearties who are going to go through withdrawals here in this 9 months, you have at least 6 more episodes of goodness and decency and
Yes.
uplift and hope and faith and love to watch in just a little more than a week. And so we're excited for Hearties to be able to continue watching. You have to go over and find Great American Family Channel on your cable system or your satellite
Mhm.
system, or you can also get there on Friendly TV.
Yes.
Anybody who has Friendly TV
Yes.
uh, has a Great American Family along with the Hallmark Channel. So
Hmm.
there's ways to watch, and I'm excited for more of this kind of storytelling
Yeah.
coming soon.
So next week, Great American Family Pure Flix, and that streams all the time. And then on Sunday night, Great American, the Family, the channel, which I will be probably watching on Sunday nights.
Yes.
I'm excited that I'm actually going to be visiting with Cindy Busby next week.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
so I'm sure she'll be able to share a little bit about her character, Nora. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that'll be exciting to hear about that. So yes, 6 more weeks of great entertainment for us, right?
100%. 100%.
Brian, you've got another project that I'm really excited about. Can you talk a little bit about your Angel Studios project, Home to Harmony, and then tell us as audience members and fans how we can get involved?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, Michael and I, our next big thing is called Home to Harmony. It's a brand new show that we're creating together. It has all the beautiful vibes of When Calls the Heart, but it's set in the modern times, and it's based on a series of books by a Quaker pastor whose name is Philip Gulley. They're fictional books, but a pastor actually wrote these books about a pastor.
Uh-huh.
And so the story revolves around a widowed pastor from New York who goes home with his 2 kids to his hometown of Harmony, Indiana. It's set in contemporary time, but it might feel a little retro because it's a small town in Indiana, the,
Yeah.
the heartland. Um, but he goes home to take over his boyhood church, right?
Yeah.
And he's leaving behind the only thing he knew during his pastorate was New York. So he's going back to this quirky little town, and it has sort of the feel of Seventh Heaven meets Northern Exposure. I guess it'd be a good way to look at it because the town is very quirky, full of fun characters, quirky characters, goofy characters, but also it's going to have all the same feels that you would get on One Calls the Heart.
I am Michael Landon Jr. Look around at TV today. It's about as uplifting as your property tax bill. But for 12 seasons, When Calls the Heart has filled that void by serving up chicken soup to cynicism-weary souls. While other TV shows race to the bottom, we've built a thriving franchise on joy.
Our passionate fans of When Calls the Heart, who call themselves Hearties, and there are over 3 million of them strong, have embraced every episode of our show. And they're demanding more content. That's why we're launching Home to Harmony, based on Pastor Philip Gulley's best-selling series of books.
Home to Harmony tells the story of a pastor who returns home to rediscover both his passion for serving humanity and his capacity for love.
Think Little House on the Prairie meets Touched by an Angel. We're creating something special, and we want you to be a part of the Harmony family from day one. It's like finding your favorite small-town diner before all the tourists discover it, but with more touching moments and less maple syrup.
You won't just be a viewer. We would love to have you as our partner, as many of you who have a willingness to believe in this vision. Supporting Home to Harmony isn't just about backing another television show. It's about helping bring faith-driven stories to a culture that needs them now more than ever.
With Home to Harmony, we're focusing on love, compassion, and community, values that resonate deeply in today's world. This is your chance to invest in a series that will inspire joy and create connections with audiences everywhere.
Imagine a world where stories that uplift and inspire lead the way. A world where love, family, and faith take center stage, and where the content we share reflects the goodness in all of us. That's the vision we're making a reality with Home to Harmony.
Your investment ensures that stories like Home to Harmony reach and resonate with audiences across the globe.
Will you join us on this journey of hope? Invest now in the future of Home to Harmony and help us bring more light into a world that desperately needs it. Thank you for considering this opportunity, and God bless you. We had sold this project to a big streamer, a very big streamer. And for 2 years, they tried to figure out what they wanted, and they didn't know what they wanted from this show. And but we know what we want from this show. We know what the audience will love. So we finally were able to convince them to let us have it back. And we're trying to do it ourselves with the help of Angel Studios. This time around, we're inviting Hearties, fans of this kind of uplifting content. You'll get a good cry. You'll get a lot of laughs. There's romance. There's a lot of heart in Home to Harmony as well. Pastor Sam will fall in love with his, re-fall in love with his high school sweetheart, who has her own story, single mother of a young teenage girl named Grace who has Down syndrome. And so there's a lot of rich tapestry in Harmony, Indiana. We're doing it through Angel Studios, which means we're building it ourselves. Because we know what the audience loves. Now, Hearties, fans of this kind of content, can actually be part of our production. They can join our production community. They can own a little part of this show. And so right now, we're in what's called a crowd investment raise. It's only been on for the last couple of days. It's going to go for the next month. But we are going to build 8 episodes of Home to Harmony with the help of the fans. And so we're excited, and you'll have the link where people can go to go check out Home to Harmony and what they might be able to do, even if they just want to pray for us. We're happy to have that.
For sure.
So we're excited about Home to Harmony, and we think the audience needs more of what 12 seasons of When Hope Calls. When Calls the Heart is brought to the world. Hopefully 12 seasons of When Hope Calls too.
Let's do it.
Anyway, so thanks for the opportunity to talk about Home to Harmony.
You bet. And I'll be in the description. I'll be sure to post how everybody can access that, check it out more, considering contributing to that. I've seen several Angel Studio productions. They're top notch.
Yes.
Very powerful stories. I'm excited to see this one come to fruition. And so that's really exciting to hear about. I played a part like in the crowdsourcing for The Chosen.
Yes. Yes. And the chosen, I was going to say that too, for people who love The Chosen. Now 5 seasons of The Chosen, which has become a huge international, hit. This is exactly how it was launched too. So we love just taking being in the wake of The Chosen and trying to do the same thing. So we're excited. We're excited.
It's really special on this side of it, knowing that even what little small part you played in that it's resonating and it's reaching so many people with such a powerful
100%.
message.
100%. Yes.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for chatting with me, sharing about your experience and your take on season 12, what we have to look forward to in season 13, the project When Hope Calls, and then Home to Harmony. It's been amazing to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great to be with you. I'll love to come back next time.
Come back anytime.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.